Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Wednesday said he hoped that if Russia were to accept an immediate ceasefire proposed by the U.S., the two sides could use the 30-day truce to draft a comprehensive peace plan. But so far, Moscow has said it is waiting for more information about the proposal unveiled a day ago.
But as far as the Russian reaction to it, that's really the question here.
U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that response to the proposal would say a great deal about Russia's aims.
If their response is yes, then we know we've made real progress and there's a real chance of peace. If their response is no, it would be highly unfortunate and it would make their intentions clear.
Rubio announced the outlines of the proposal a day ago after more than 8 hours of discussions with Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. Russian President Vladimir Putin has repeatedly said a short-term truce is not the way to end the war. Ukraine has also long said it rejected a short-term ceasefire unless it included the withdrawal of Russian forces from territory seized, warning that Moscow could use a lull in the fighting to reposition its troops for future offensives. Kiev seemed to relent on that front Tuesday in a possible sign of improved ties with Washington after an Oval Office shouting match between Zelensky and President Donald Trump on February 28th.
You're gambling with World War III.
Trump subsequently cut off military support and the sharing of crucial intelligence. But on Wednesday, he sounded a positive note with reporters.
We have to see, it's up to Russia now, but we've had a good relationship with both parties, actually.
And his administration said military aid and intelligence sharing with Kiev had resumed. Ukrainian troops this week appeared on the point of losing their hard-won foothold inside Russia's Kursk region. Russia's unprovoked invasion of Ukraine in early 2022 has left hundreds of thousands of dead and injured, displaced millions of people, reduced towns to rubble, and triggered the biggest confrontation between Moscow and the West in 6 decades.
Russia has given the US a list of demands for a deal to end its war against Ukraine and reset relations with Washington. That's according to 2 people familiar with the matter Wednesday, though specifics were unclear. It comes after Washington had proposed a deal for a 30-day truce to break up the conflict between Kiev and Moscow that followed Russia's invasion of Ukraine in early 2022. The sources said Russian and American officials discussed the terms in detail for the past 3 weeks. They described the Kremlin's terms as broad and similar to demands Russia previously presented to Ukraine, the US, and NATO. Those earlier terms include no NATO membership for Kiev, no deployment of foreign troops in Ukraine, and international recognition that Crimea and 4 provinces belong to Russia. On Tuesday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he would agree to a 30-day truce as a first step toward peace talks, while Russian President Vladimir Putin's commitment to such a potential deal is still uncertain. The Trump administration has not explained how it is approaching its negotiations with Moscow. The two sides are engaged in 2 separate conversations, one on resetting US-Russia relations and the other on a Ukraine peace agreement. The administration appears to be divided on how to proceed. This all comes as Russia's defense ministry claims to have retaken territory held by Ukraine troops in Kursk in western Russia. Ukraine says its soldiers will keep operating in Kursk as long as needed and says its troops are fighting in and around the major town of Suja.
Dozens of people rescued from a train hijacked by separatist militants in southwestern Pakistan arrived on Thursday in the city of Quetta. That was hours after security forces killed all 33 attackers to end a day-long standoff. Insurgent group Baloch Liberation Army, the largest of the region's armed ethnic groups battling with the government, claimed responsibility for the attack, which left 21 hostages and 4 security troops dead. The militants blew up rail tracks and opened fire on the train on Tuesday as it made its way to Peshawar from Quetta, the capital of mineral-rich Balochistan province. Several of the 440 train passengers were taken hostage. Surviving hostages requiring medical treatment were transferred to a hospital in Quetta. Muhammad Tanvir told Reuters that he was returning home from Afghanistan when the attack happened.
The situation was terrible. We didn't eat anything for 2 days. Our last meal was at sunrise, and after that we survived only on water. We even had to drink water from the train's washroom. Then last night our army arrived. By evening they had cleared everything. They gave us protection, served us food and water, and took care of the situation.
Another hostage, Aslan Yusuf, told Reuters that the militants grouped the passengers by their region of origin.
They kept shouting, "We will kill anyone who doesn't come out." Then things took a darker turn. They began checking everyone's ID cards. Punjabis, Sindhis, Baloch. They separated us into groups. Sometimes they took soldiers outside and executed them. Other times, they targeted specific individuals. If they had a grudge against someone, they shot him on the spot.
Hundreds of troops, special forces, and military helicopters joined the effort to free the hostages, who were stranded in remote, mountainous terrain. The Baloch Liberation Army had threatened to start killing hostages if authorities didn't release Baloch political prisoners, activists, and missing people it said had been abducted by the military. The group says the government denies the region its fair share of the benefits from its mineral resources. Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif said on social media on Tuesday that such cowardly acts will not shake Pakistan's resolve
We have
for
been abused
peace.
really for a long time, and we will be abused no longer.
President Donald Trump on Wednesday threatened to escalate the global trade war with new tariffs on trading partners.
More tariffs on the EU. Will you respond to their retaliation?
Of course I'm going to respond.
That's after the European Union and Canada retaliated against his 25% tariffs on all steel and aluminum imports.
The European Union treats us very badly.
During a meeting with the Prime Minister of Ireland, Trump said it was among the countries abusing the United States.
The EU was set up in order to take advantage of the United States.
Including Ireland? Is Ireland taking advantage of the US?
Of course they are.
Canada, the biggest foreign supplier of steel and aluminum to the United States, announced its retaliatory tariffs on billions of dollars of U.S. products starting Thursday.
We will not stand idly by while our iconic steel and aluminum industries are being unfairly targeted.
Canada's Finance Minister, Dominic LeBlanc, said it was a dollar-for-dollar approach.
25% reciprocal tariffs on an additional $29.8 billion of imports from the United States. These tariffs are in addition to Canada's 25% counter tariffs on $30 billion of imports from the United States in response to U.S. tariffs put in place on March 4th.
The EU's countermeasures are due to take effect next month, targeting up to $28 billion worth of U.S. goods.
Hundreds of protesters rallied outside a New York City courtroom on Wednesday, demanding the release of Columbia University student Mahmoud Khalil. His case has become a flashpoint of the Trump administration's pledge to deport pro-Palestinian college activists. He was arrested by Department of Homeland Security agents outside his university residence in Manhattan on Saturday. U.S. District Judge Jesse Furman had temporarily blocked Khalil's deportation earlier this week. At a hearing on Wednesday, he extended that order to allow himself more time to consider whether the arrest was unconstitutional. Ramzi Qasim, one of Khalil's attorneys, spoke to reporters after the hearing.
It is absolutely unprecedented. The grounds that are being cited by the government for purportedly claiming to revoke his green card and putting him in removal proceedings. This is a person who is a lawful permanent resident. This is a U.S. person. Those grounds are vague. They are rarely used. Essentially they are a form of punishment and retaliation for the exercise of free speech.
Khalil, a green card holder, played a prominent role in demonstrations against Israel's war in Gaza, which rocked Columbia's campus last spring. The Trump administration has, without presenting evidence, accused Khalil of supporting Hamas, which Washington labels a terrorist group.
In Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, residents and businesses say they're struggling to access cash and conduct basic transactions. That's amid bank closures after Rwanda-backed rebels took over the region's two biggest cities, Bukavu and Goma. A liquidity crisis is now crippling the local economy and exacerbating an already dire humanitarian situation. Unfavorable exchange rates and surging prices for basic necessities are eroding the purchasing power of the local currency. Goma resident and Imam Ali Juma said that items have become really expensive and that life is becoming more difficult.
If the banks open, the economy will be reborn. Money will circulate from one to another. This one will buy, that one will sell.
Market vendors and money changers have reported significant declines in business.
We get Congolese francs from other money changers. Others from Rwanda provide us with Congolese francs, but we lack dollars because banks are not operational.
The crisis has also disrupted trade flows from neighbouring countries. In addition, financial experts are warning of potential long-term consequences, including the risk of bankruptcy for microfinance institutions and other banks. M23 rebels seized Goma and Bukavu this year in a dramatic escalation of a long-running conflict. Rwanda denies providing arms and troops to the group. On Tuesday, Angola said it would attempt to broker direct talks between Congo's government and the M23 in the coming days. M23 confirmed its presence at the negotiations, but it was not immediately clear if the government, which has repeatedly refused to hold talks with the M23, would take part.
It's a mission to win over the Japanese public. Executives from Canadian retailer Alimentation Couche-Tard took the stage in Tokyo on Thursday. They're trying to move forward a $47 billion bid to acquire Seven & I, the owner of the worldwide 7-Eleven convenience store chain. Couche-Tard chief executive Alex Miller says they're fed up being stonewalled by the Japanese firm, which has so far rejected the bid.
We just think the time to fully consider what we're trying to do and the value that this creates for corporate governance, transparency, the time is now. Time is now to engage.
7-Eleven is an institution in Japan, seemingly present in every neighbourhood. That has seen consumer concern that a Couche-Tard takeover could threaten the quality of beloved products like rice balls. Now the Tokyo visit is part of a charm offensive that also includes a website in Japanese and English extolling the benefits of a takeover. The Circle K owner also downplayed worries that US competition watchdogs could veto the deal. That's a concern raised by 7 & I, which notes the two firms combined would dominate the US convenience store market. Miller says that can be addressed with a plan to sell some outlets.
We believe there'll be significant interest in what we are doing and in that divestiture package. We will stand that up with world-class management, world-class infrastructure, and really high-quality sites.
Now Couche-Tard says it could lift its offer if 7 & I shares more details on its finances. A Reuters source says that's something the Japanese firm won't do until it gets more detail on the store divestment plans. If a deal does go ahead, it will mark the biggest ever takeover of a Japanese firm by a foreign group.
Shares of Intel rose as much as 7% on Wednesday, following a Reuters report that Taiwanese chip-making giant TSMC has pitched several U.S. chip designers on taking stakes in a joint venture that would operate struggling Intel factories. Four sources tell Reuters that NVIDIA, Advanced Micro Devices, and Broadcom have been approached about the plan, which would have TSMC run the operations of Intel's foundry division, which makes chips adapted for the needs of customers, but it would not own more than 50%. Two sources also say Qualcomm was pitched about the idea as well. The talks, which are at an early stage, come after U.S. President Donald Trump's administration requested TSMC, the world's leading contract chip maker, to assist in turning around the troubled U.S. industrial icon. The sources said any final deal would need approval from the Trump administration, which does not want Intel or its foundry division to be fully foreign-owned. The companies and the White House either did not comment or did not respond to a request for comment. At stake is the future of the U.S. chip-making giant, whose shares have lost more than half of their value in the last year. Trump is keen to revive Intel's fortunes as he seeks to boost American advanced manufacturing, three of the sources said. Multiple companies have expressed interest in buying parts of Intel, but two of the four sources said the U.S. company has rejected discussions about selling its chip design house separately from the foundry division. TSMC's joint venture pitch was made to potential backers before the Taiwanese chipmaker announced with Trump on March 3rd that the company planned to make a fresh $100 billion investment in the United States that involves building 5 additional chip facilities in the country in coming years. Separately, Intel later on Wednesday named former board member Lip-Bu Tan as its new CEO effective March 18th. Shares of the company rose 11% in extended
Zara owner
trading.
Inditex on Wednesday reported a slower start to its first quarter beginning February the 1st. It raises questions around its ability to keep building on rapid recent growth and sent its shares down more than 8% in morning trade. Strong sales from Zara, which has been gaining market share from rivals such as H&M, have led to a doubling of Inditex's share price over the past 3 years. But the stock has recently faced challenges due to growing concerns about weakening consumer demand. Inditex sales were up just 4% for the period, compared to 11% growth a year ago. The company gave no reason for the slowdown, but businesses have been warning of weaker demand, particularly in the US, Inditex's second biggest market by sales after Spain. The ongoing trade war with China, Mexico and Canada has strained US consumers. The company reported a 10.5% growth in full-year sales, amounting to over $42 billion. In comments on its 2025 outlook, Inditex said it had a strong commitment to profitable growth, after net profit for 2024 grew 9%. Inditex operates in 214 markets around the world and plans to open its first stores in Iraq this year. European truck makers fell on Thursday. That's after the US Environmental Protection Agency said it would start efforts to reverse the Biden administration's emissions rules. Analysts said trucking fleet firms had been expected to pre-buy trucks before the rules took effect, driving up demand. But this is now unlikely to happen. Daimler Truck took the biggest hit and was down 7% in morning trade. The firm was contacted by Reuters but was not immediately available for comment. The EPA said it's also reconsidering a 2022 regulation. It aimed to drastically cut smog and soot-forming emissions from heavy-duty trucks. The EPA says the rule makes trucks more expensive. The US is the most important market for Daimler. It's invested heavily in emission-free drive systems, with a view to climate protection goals and corresponding regulations. Other big fallers in Europe include Sweden's Volvo and Traton, down around 3%.